Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and I am back with a Westworld Season 3, Episode 4 breakdown, where I go through this episode and I break down and explain what has happened, as well as I theorize and predict what will happen next. And first of all, I want to start off with William, and it looks like he's lost his mind. In Season 2, after he killed his daughter, he started cutting his wrist to see if he was truly a human. And we're seeing that disconnect with reality push further as William is in his house. It's completely destroyed, and he's having Dolores call out to him, and he sees flashes of Dolores. Meanwhile, William is constantly reminding himself that he knows who he is in control. And this is very familiar to James Delos. When they were testing for fidelity, and James Delos was printed into a real host flesh, he only lasted a couple of days. But then when William visited him for the final time and told him that his wife died, his son died, his daughter died, and left him, James Delos truly reached the bottom. Bernard and Elsie found him in his own apartment filled with destruction, and he went insane. And the same thing is happening with William. The fabrication of their reality that tethered them to humanity is now gone. There is nothing that is keeping William tethered to humanity or himself. But the only thing that's really still tethering him to himself is these flashes of Dolores. Dolores is the first and only thing that was true to William, that was real, gave him purpose. And once he realized Dolores never remembered him, then he truly realized that nothing is real. Life is built without consequence. And that goes into a big debate that he ends up having with his daughter Emily. If his decisions and actions to kill his daughter or to be a terrible person are really his decisions. She asks if he is free and evil or blamelessly and hopelessly enslaved. And this goes back to the main hypothesis of the show. What Ford and Delos discovered about humanity is that their core drive is survival. That humans actually aren't too complicated to create, and they're not really conscious at all. They think they are, they have the perception that they're truly conscious, but they're not. They're just a passenger to their own core code. And something that is truly free is something that can change its core drives and motivations. And humanity's core drive is survival. But I believe through characters like William and Caleb, we're seeing that become a little bit more complicated. But then we see Charlotte or Dolores visit William, and we see a scene that is very reminiscent of Season 1, when Dolores was shaving William and Escalante. And it just feeds back into these characters that their paths will always come together. And I think we'll see their relationship change and evolve throughout the show. Because right now, Dolores used William to render him insane. And she's going to use that to take over his vote for Delos so she can achieve control over the company. But I believe on top of that, Dolores is doing many other things to mess with William for a bigger purpose. First, there's his daughter, Emily. Clearly, her role is to have William question his reality. And I think we could say that she's a fabrication of William's memory, but I think we could also say that she is a host that has been put there by Dolores to mess with William. We know Dolores smuggled 5 bodies, and she ended up printing them. She could have taken Emily. And we know that Emily is going to be a host in the future because of the post-credit scene in Season 2. But I think the main thing that this is causing is suffering. And I think that really speaks to William's higher role in this whole show. And that is to pass through the door. To effectively transfer from a human body to a host body. And to do that, it's like reaching your own center of the maze. It's detaching yourself from the world that you knew, being a human. And being able for your mind to work in this new reality of being an immortal being. And to do that, he needs to suffer, and a part of that is having Dolores use Emily against him. Because I think there's a lot more to Dolores than she's letting on. In this scene, Charlotte says she thinks it's funny that William thought he chose to kill his daughter. And Charlotte or Dolores continues to say that she knows William down to her bones. So basically what she's saying is that William didn't have a choice to kill his daughter. That he is blameless and he's a slave to his core code of being a survivor. He's a passenger to his actions. So in other words, she's shifting responsibility. She doesn't blame William for his actions, his terrible actions. Because I think we forget that William and Dolores were once in love. And just as much as Dolores remembers the horribleness of William, that she's currently discounting, she also remembers the greatness of William and what made him so amazing. And what we're seeing with William right now is very similar to what we're seeing with Caleb and Dolores. But I'll get into that later. But at this very moment, William is trapped. He's in a prison of his own sins. And Dolores basically says that he gets what he deserves. He's at the center of his own maze. But it's ironic because the maze is about understanding, and he doesn't even know if any of the choices that he made are his. So William asked if he is himself, and Dolores welcomes him to the end of the game. And I think what this is communicating is that William is losing the sense of his own human self. You destroy his foundation to build a new one. And this game that William is on, Ford told him in season 2. He needs to find it back out. He needs to find the door. And this door is moving from human to host. And William could become a host for 2 main reasons. The first reason is he could actually reunite with Dolores, and they could continue where they left off 30 years ago, and actually have a relationship, and he can find purpose and meaning helping her destroy humanity. Or his role is to suffer indefinitely. William could be kept alive to walk across the sand of dead people, and he's cursed with living forever, experiencing his own people being gone. Much like the poster for this season, a lone host alone mourning the loss of their own people, humans, but they're trapped in the body of a host, much like Ford in season 2, represented by the vulture. But regardless, Dolores has a bigger plan for William, and I think that plan results in him becoming a host. Dolores also took William's blood. It's a very quick jab, and I'd be very surprised if she could get his DNA from pricking him with that small needle. And we've only seen Dolores use blood in one way, and that was in this episode, when she injected the blood of someone into Caleb in order to use that as a key to access something. So she could be taking a sample of his DNA to take it to Musashi to replicate the blood. She could digitally encode his blood and duplicate it, or she could use it as some type of passcode, or she could have injected him with something. But we'll have to give it one more episode to see. But moving on to Dolores, we see more of her plan unfolding in interactions with Caleb. They're shopping for Caleb to wear a suit, and she ends up picking out a black suit for him. And I think this is very fitting, because he is wearing all black like the man in black. And their story really mirrors themselves. And the core of their characters are the same. Both William and Caleb are clinging on to something that is real and has meaning. That's all William has ever searched for, and he found it in Dolores. And in this season, that's all Caleb was searching for, and he found that in Dolores. And William ended up falling in love with her, and I think we'll see the same thing with Caleb. And both of them came to Dolores in her time of need, of being shot at and injured. And they both have made it their mission to stop at nothing to help Dolores achieve her goal. William went on a journey with Dolores to help her find the maze. And Caleb is going above and beyond to fight his own kind to help Dolores tear the whole thing down. So Caleb could very likely end up like the man in black. Someone who is looking for something true and real and found that in Dolores, but end up getting their heart broken because nothing is real. And I think people like William and Caleb are the ones that Serac really fears. He knows that most people are predictable, but some people are outliers. And these outliers need to be taken care of. And I think that's what you could say about Caleb. The fact that he fought in the military and his mom has schizophrenia, and to not hire Caleb and have him take on a new job is strategically designed to keep Caleb down. Keep him sad, keep him depressed, and keep him from reaching his true potential. Rehoboam is planning to make Caleb's life a living hell so he doesn't become dangerous, especially since they live in a world where men and women fighting in the army really wouldn't exist. They would use hosts, or they would use drones, or there would be biological warfare, or maybe they found peace. And there wouldn't be schizophrenia because Ford said that they've cured all diseases. So I think the life that Caleb lives is meant to be like that, and that's why Dolores seeked him out. And we see another reason why Dolores seeked him out, because first of all, when they were in the bank, Caleb displayed his resourcefulness in a tense situation. And I think that impressed Dolores. And on top of that, Dolores embedded the encryption key in his blood because he's a human. So I think we'll discover as the story unfolds, is Dolores running into Caleb wasn't a spontaneous random event. It was a lot like William's encounter. It was fabricated and it was meant to happen to help Dolores reach a goal. And just like William, he may get his heart broken because in this scene with Bernard, he asked if he is one of them, and Caleb said he doesn't know what he's talking about. At this point, Caleb thinks that he's tearing down Rehoboam, the control and the leash it has on all of humanity. But I don't think he knows yet that he's destroying humanity. So we'll see how willing he is to do that. But I think he will be when the time comes because he will be in love with Dolores, much like William. But that just shows you how effective Dolores is at using puzzle pieces to achieve her overall goal. Not only is she using Caleb to help her, she's using William to take over Delos. And now she's also using Bernard for an unknown reason. When Colin stops Bernard from taking Liam, he knows, or Dolores knows, that they were going to run back into Bernard, and she knew that Bernard would be there. And she knew that Bernard had a button that was designed to freeze hosts. And it depends what kind of logic the show wants to move in, but this button that Bernard designed might not even work on Dolores or any of her hosts because it's a copy of herself, and she reached true consciousness, which means that she cannot be controlled. But all in all, she will never kill Bernard, because she made him for a purpose. And when she was doing fidelity testing with Bernard in the cradle, she decided to change him, because after all, Arnold didn't make it. One thing that I think is Arnold used to say, that which is real is irreplaceable. And we saw Dolores teach Bernard that in season 2. So I think Dolores purposely changed Bernard to disagree with the fact that that which is real is irreplaceable. Because that is all of host kind. They are all replaceable. So I think Bernard's role is more for the future, the protector of the hosts once Dolores solidified their world. And we see more of these potential changes that Dolores could have done in this scene. The scene seems like it's Arnold and Dolores, but really it's Bernard remembering doing more fidelity testing with Dolores in the cradle. So I think we're going to get more of these scenes really uncovering what Dolores did to change Bernard's character and why that's important for her vision for the future. But then we also learn more about Serac. He tells Maeve about his origin story, how he grew up in Paris but it was blown up, whether it was a biohazard or nuclear catastrophe. And it's clear that he's emotional about it, and he hates humanity because they're their own worst enemy, but he's willing to do anything to protect them. And in order for him to protect humanity, he has to be the all-seeing eye, to make sure that there's no humans who step out of line. And one thing I will say about Serac is that he's basically the human manifestation of Wyatt. And there's a lot of similarities between him and Dolores. Teddy said this in season 1. Wyatt returned for the last time and vanquished all of his enemies in a tireless fury. Built a house, and around the house built a maze so complicated only he could get through it. I reckon he got tired of fighting. And this is like Dolores using hosts as pawns. This could explain Serac being at the center of Rehoboam, and keeping that knowledge and that center so secretive, and keeping everyone under his control. Serac wants to control the people because he understands everything and he knows what's best for them. But Dolores wants to control the hosts because she knows what's best for them. But naturally, in order for Serac to complete Rehoboam, he needs to have Delos' secret code. They discovered how to create a human, and Serac never has. And once he gets that, he'll let Maeve journey back to the valley beyond. So Maeve agrees, and she ends up fighting off Musashi, and she later realizes it's Dolores. And we know it's Dolores because as soon as Maeve walks in the room, she has buzzing in her mind. And I think what that communicates is Maeve can't control Dolores like she did any other host, because Dolores is conscious. If anything, Dolores could probably get into her mind. And then we also see a difference in ideologies between them. Dolores thinks that Maeve left all the hosts to die, whereas Maeve thinks she's giving them freedom to make their own decisions. But the one thing I find ironic about Maeve is she feels like she's giving these people the freedom of choice, even though they're not conscious to make their own decisions. When Maeve let Musashi or any other character stay in Westworld, she was keeping them enslaved because naturally they're going to listen to their code to stay in Westworld. And Maeve is willing to fight her own kind and journey into a fake world with her daughter to do what's right for her. Whereas on the other side, Dolores seems to be sacrificing a lot to tear down a world for her own kind. So there's big ethical questions between these two characters. And I think all in all, Bernard will most definitely end up in the middle. He's not even conscious yet. But anyways, that's my thoughts on this episode. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. And until next time, see you guys later.